do lesson 1, 2, and it's going to be over comparing and ordering whole numbers. We're going to use the place value that we learned about yesterday to order whole numbers. So you've learned how to compare numbers before. Today we're going to learn how to make comparisons between greater numbers and use inequality signs to show these comparisons. So what I want you to do first is think about a time that you've ever had to compare two numbers. So you might think of something like at the grocery store, you've got different prices. You're comparing prices of oranges or apples, or maybe if you compare at a track meet the times. Those are numbers that you're trying to compare, but what we're going to talk about today is comparing greater numbers. So think on a bigger scale, so things like the distances between planets, or maybe comparing national debt. So we're talking about big, big numbers. So what I went ahead and did was I wrote two numbers on the board. So we have 24,902 and we have 24,092. And what I want you to do is first write out the steps, like a procedure that you're going to need to do to figure out which one of these numbers is bigger. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video, or I want you to pause the video and write out your steps, and then you're going to tell me which number was bigger using your steps. So make sure you're writing your PBIL section and take your notes. So pause your video now. Okay, so here are the steps that I did. I went ahead and wrote step 1. You're going to line up the numbers by their place values. So what I did was I lined them up and I put the ones next to each other, the tens, the hundreds, thousands, and 10,000. So those are lined up. Then step 2, starting left to right, compare the numbers to find the greater digit. The reason we're starting left to right is because the further left you go, the greater the place value. So let's take a look at our two numbers. We lined up the ones column, the tens, hundreds, the thousands, and 10,000s. So now we look in the 10,000s column, and the 2's are both the same. So since the 2's are the same, we're going to move on to the thousands column. In the thousands column, we have 4's. Since 4's are the same number, we're going to move to the hundreds column. This is where we see the first difference. The top number has a 9, and the bottom number has a 0. So since 9 is greater than 0, 24,902 is greater than 24,092. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and look at the first numbers that we had, and we're going to put in our inequality sign. And if you don't remember, our inequality signs are less than and greater than. So in this order, 24,902 is greater than 24,092. And if you have trouble remembering that, the way that I learned when I was a kid was that the open side is an alligator mouth. And the alligator's always hungry, so he's always going to eat the bigger number. So that's a little kind of cheesy trick, but if it helps you remember, then just remember that mouth is always open to the greater number. Magic of video, now we've got two new numbers. I'm going to step aside so you can see them. We have 5,827,916 and 500,827,906. What I want you to do in your notes is go ahead and list out the steps again, and then using your inequality signs, tell me if it's greater than or less than. So go ahead and pause the video and do your work now. Okay, now that you've had a chance to do your problem, the way that you're going to do it is you're looking at the place values. So again, you would line them up. So what I'm going to do is just write this number below. Okay, so we're going to start working from left to right because again, the left place value is greater than on the right. So we compare the millions place. They're both 5, so we're going to move on to the 100,000s place. They're both 8s. Looking at the 10,000s place, we have 2 2s. The thousands place, they're both 7s. The hundreds place, they're both 9s. And the first time we see a differences in the numbers is in the tens column. And 1 is greater than 0. So that means that 5,827,916 is the greater number. So again, we're going to throw our inequality sign in there. And we're going to say that 5,827,916 is greater than 5 million. All right, so since we're talking about large numbers, I decided that we would go on a field trip. So if you can see, we're in the gym, and I decided that I would look and see what I could find. And you wouldn't believe what I found, but here's some pretty big numbers.
101,548, 101,229, 101,230, 101,231,
Okay, so those are some pretty huge numbers that they just put up. So we're going to take a look at those numbers here in just a second. Okay, so here's the numbers that they ended up putting up. Coach Ziggy had 101,252 pull-ups. Coach Fernandez had 101,257 pull-ups. And I wanted to give you guys three numbers, so we just threw a fictional character in there. We'll call him Coach Hall. And we'll say that he did 101,301 pull-ups. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to compare these numbers. And the way that we're going to do that is that we're going to line them up. So I already did that first step for you, so they're all lined up. And now we're going to have to go through and look at the digits from right to left. The reason we're doing right to left is because the right digits are going to be in a greater value. So let's look, and let's compare Coach Ziggy and Coach Hall. So Coach Ziggy and Coach Hall both have 101,000. So the first three digits, the first three place values are all the same. They all match up. So since they match up, we're just going to move on. Then we look at the hundredths column. And in the hundredths place value, Coach Ziggy has a 2 and Coach Hall has a 3. So what we're going to look at now is which inequality value to use. So Coach Ziggy's listed first with 101,252, and Coach Hall's listed second with 101,301. Since we saw that in the hundredth place value, Coach Hall's was bigger, we're going to have the inequality going that 101,252 is less than 101,301. Okay, so now I want you to flip to your guided practice section of your notes. And what we're going to do is a couple practice problems. So I'm going to read the problems, and then I want you to just pause the video, work on them on your own, and I'll give you the answers. So number one, we're comparing 27,318 to 28,001. Number two, you're going to compare 1,000,001 and compare that to 1,000,010. So draw your inequality arrows in there. And for number three, I want you to order the numbers from least to greatest. So you're going to be ordering 3,964, 4,160, 3,395, and 4,000. So go ahead and pause the video here, and I'll give you the answers. All right, here are your answers. 28,001 is going to be larger than 27,318, and 1,000,001 is less than 1,000,010. The three numbers from least to greatest are 3,395, 3,964, 4,000, and 4,160. So now we're going to ask you one more question, and then you'll be done with your guided practice. All right, here's your final problem, and I know it's kind of hard to read. I'm going to read it for you. 2 International Finance Center is 1,362 feet tall. Use the table to find which is taller, 2 International Finance Center or the Jin Mao Tower. And here's the table that you're going to use. So again, go ahead and pause the video, and then I will let you know which tower is actually taller. Hopefully you paused the video and you didn't cheat. But the Jin Mao Tower is actually taller. So that's the end of guided practice. Go ahead and go to your quiz section. I'll give you your quiz questions, and then you will be done. So I was wrong. Go ahead, and what I want you to do now is log into your Pearson SuccessNet, and you're going to take your quiz on there. So what you're going to do is log into SuccessNet. You're going to go to your to-do list, and it should be under section 1-2. You'll have that assignment, and on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to see a list of things to do. We already went through into the lesson. We did all that fun stuff, guided practice. Now what I want you to do is at the bottom of that list, there should be a link that says quiz. Click the quiz. It should be like 5 questions. Take it, write down all your work in your notebook. So what you should have is your PBIL section labeled, all your notes from that. Then a line, your guided practice, all your notes from that, the practice problems, those 5 that we just did, or the 4, 5, whatever number we did. Draw a line, then write quiz. Write each of your work for the problems in your quiz. Okay, then do your quiz on the computer, and then on the top right corner of your quiz section, I want you to write how many problems you got right out of the total number of questions. And then I will see you in class tomorrow. Bye.